Good morning, everybody. It is great to be with you. It is I, Brian Escow, the host, hopefully and fortunately, of the Brian Escow Show. I'm in the right place. Good. Okay. We're all in the right place. This happened this weekend. I will tell you a little bit about this amazing weekend. It was the most perfect weekend. But my little joke to start is I'm a husband now, so whatever I say carries more weight than it did before. I'm clearly more mature than I was a few days ago, and you're just going to have to deal with a Brian who is now loading up on confidence and self belief. And so let's all be warned about that. That's happening. No, it's a very exciting weekend. It was so perfect, and I feel so blessed. I've been talking about it in this podcast leading up in the last couple months. The wedding is 3 months out, too. One, 2 weeks out, and then it finally happened. And I- I'll tell you two quick funny stories, really, and that's it. But other than those two stories, I will say again, it was perfect. It was magical, and I really hope that any of you who are going to get married um, in the near term future or the long term future, whenever, if you get married, I really hope that your day is as perfect as ours was. Um, just full of blessings and love and peace. Everyone got along. Everyone who you were concerned might not get along got along. So we are just really riding this high. Um, the two funny stories are chlorine and bow tie. So we get in Friday to Scottsdale and we have this private dinner that we're going to do with just immediate family. We do that. It's wonderful. We do Saturday, we do the rehearsal dinner. My mom put that together with this at this gorgeous Italian restaurant. It was awesome. And then Sunday was the big day. Sip of water, excuse me. And it was instantly a good weekend. Everything, the vibes were just high. And so Saturday, I'm really feeling myself, and we're chilling by the pool. Of course, I've got sunscreen on, decked out. I wasn't gonna take any chances, so I'm completely lathered. But we're chilling by the pool, and I decide to take a swim for a few minutes. And I'm just feeling good. I got my friends around me. They all came in from across the country. I'm with my fiance, and it's just her and I in the pool. And I'm just kind of swimming around, talking to my friends, whatever. And then I'm feeling so good. I get so excited that I just start getting giddy. And I'm like, hey, Lewis, you think I could swim to the other side of the pool in one breath? That kind of thing. Next thing you know, I'm underwater and I haven't been in a pool in like years, it feels like. And I decide for some reason to just open my eyes and it's like I'm examining the entire bottom of the pool. Um, didn't think anything of it. First of all, I couldn't even make it across halfway. Okay. That's number one. But the point was, I'm now swimming like an idiot with my eyes open. And that night, and then the next all into the evening, Saturday, and all into Sunday morning, okay, wedding day, my eyes are burning. They are red. It looked like I had Ebola. It was really bad. I'm totally Groomzilla now. I'm running around. Who has eye drops? What kind of eye drops? I mean, I think I smoke a little weed sometimes. I know a thing or two about eye drops, or I thought I did. No, no, no. I got educated in the eye drops game. So I'm having a 16-hour conversation with Grok. What's my treatment plan? What's my prognosis? What should I do? And blah, blah, blah. And the point was, it really threw a wrench into my plans. Now, it all worked out. The shades were drawn the whole Sunday morning. And instead of hanging out with my friends and getting breakfast and coffee and chilling, I was just holed up and healing and checking in with Grok. Am I really going to be okay for pictures by 2:30? Is this really all going to work out? And it was crazy and chaotic, but it did work out. The corners of my eyes were beet red, but most of my eyes were mostly white. Okay. It all worked, but it was painful. And for some reason, Grok told me not to take Advil on my wedding day. It thought it would mess with my stomach. I was like, wow, really? So I deprived myself of any pain relief. And it turns out, I ended up taking the Advil. I don't know, Monday morning at like 6 a.m. And within 45 minutes, I had total relief. And I was like, wow, all of that drama could have been avoided if I just took Advil. But, so that was kind of funny. That was the chlorine story. That was Groomzilla Part 1. So the bow tie. So I had been telling my best man, my best friend from childhood, for the last 7 weeks. I checked with him every week. I said, Ben, can you tie a bow tie? This is a preppy. He's not that preppy, but he's you might consider him a bow tie guy. I said, Ben, you know how to tie a bow tie? Yeah, I know how to tie a bow tie. Okay, great. Okay. Every week I would check in with him. Ben, are you sure you know how to tie? Yes. I'm going into this weekend. I had my rented tux. I had my bow tie. We couldn't go with the clip on. It looked too shitty. It was too big. It was too shitty looking. So he said, we got to go with this one. And all my eggs are in the Ben can tie the bow tie basket. So having the chlorinated eye freak out, and it was a freak out. I'm running around. Everyone in the freaking hotel knew what was going on. So um, we kind of get through that. We're powering through that. And I told my boys, so we didn't do the groomsman thing for reasons I won't get into, but I had a bunch of friends there that easily could have been my groomsmen. And the whole plan was to meet them around 1:30, 2 o'clock ish, even earlier, possibly, to hang out in what they were calling this secret apartment in the resort. And there's a pool table and some arcade games, and we're going to chill, do the photos, and me doing my final button, that kind of thing. So because I'm so fucked up from the eyes and I'm like bleeding out my eyes and it's all painful, I'm telling 7 different people 7 things. You be ready by 12. You be ready by 1. You don't have to be formally dressed by this time. I mean, it's a disaster. So I wasn't expecting everyone to be on time. But nonetheless, I did expect everyone to be there kind of by 2 o'clock. That was reasonable to expect, despite my mixed messaging. So it's 2:15. I'm chilling by myself in the secret apartment. I just woke up. I'm a little thirsty. Pardon me. And I did tell everyone, hey, look, pictures at 2:30. So this guy comes in plain clothes. That guy comes in plain clothes. This guy's dressed. It's all a disaster. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Just get out here, go change, come back, change, get dressed. It's fine. Whatever. Not a big deal. We didn't really get the photos of us hanging out that we were really going for. Not a problem. Not the biggest priority. Here's what I was concerned about. It's 2:15 now, and I've got photos at 2:30. I told my boys, "Hey, I've got photos at 2:30." I didn't tell them I've got first look at 2:30 with my bride. So they didn't really have a sense of the timing. So I can't really blame them. But here's what happens. It's 2:15. I'm sitting there by myself, and I obviously don't have my bow tie on because I can't tie the damn thing. And in comes Ben, my best man, to save the day. He's got his suit on. He's looking fresh as hell. Great looking guy. He's got his shades on. He's looking ready to rock, bro. Like just like a hot bodyguard, right? He's like ready. He's fresh, fit, suits pressed, boom, dialed in. He walks in. I'm like, oh, thank God. And the photographer is there. She's talking me down off the ledge, like, ooh, so nervous. She's like, everything's gonna be fine. So Ben walks in and I go, oh, thank God. Ben, listen, I've got first look in 15 minutes. Can you tie my bow tie? Oh, I can't tie a bow tie. And he said it so seriously and so authentically that I go, wow, you had me, dude. Holy crap, you really scared me. Now tie my fucking bow tie. He goes, Brian, let's YouTube it. I'm like, oh my God, he's serious. Oh my God, he's serious. I could show you a picture, and I will sometime in the future, of Ben on one side and my other boy Brian on my other side, and they're both watching a video, and I knew it wasn't going to happen. I'm like, so the photographer is taking pics. You can imagine those candids. I am fucking irate because the schedule was very specific, obviously, and it was all tied to the sun and everything. So it was like, we can't really miss this schedule, guys. So I am instantly livid. They're both working on me. It's hilarious in hindsight, but I knew it wasn't gonna happen. I knew they weren't gonna be able to get it. So I texted my mom. I said, "Instantly canvass every human being in this resort, and I need someone capable of tying a bow tie at this room within 5 minutes, period. Make it happen." I was just like it was like I was the king or the emperor, and I was spewing orders like hot magma. "Get this to me now." Type of thing. And then I have my buddy Lewis off in the corner goes, "He's so great. I haven't seen him in years. One of my best friends from high school. Bri, you want me to go out and try to find somebody?" I said, "No, Lewis, I got my mom on it. I got my bride's mother who works at the resort. She knows everyone. I just said, Lewis, what are you gonna do? You know, like this guy saved my wedding. He says, "Fuck Brian. I'm not listening to Brian." He took matters into his own hands. He runs out the door. Within 2 minutes, here he brings this GM in, this guy who apparently knew how to tie a bow tie. And long story short, he eventually ties my bow tie, and it looked all right. It looked, I mean, it looked like shit, but it looked all right. You know, you can only look so bad in a bow tie, and it worked out. But it was completely distressing, and that was kind of my Groomzilla story. So we ended up, we were 10 minutes late, but it all worked out. So it was a gorgeous weekend, and we can now look back at that video. Someone took a video, and the photographer took photos, and they are funny. In hindsight, they are very funny. In the moment, they were not funny at all. So that was interesting. Okay, so we had an amazing weekend, and that's my life update. So thank you all very much. I feel amazing. The ceremony was beautiful. Um, yeah, the rabbi told me, like, "Hey, like, give to charity that day, study the Torah that day. It's a very holy day." And I did that, and despite the drama, I felt really good about it. So let's move on to the Groyper war that I found myself in, the Groyper battle. I did an episode a few weeks ago on Nick Fuentes, and I think it was really fair and balanced, and I hope you go check it out. I listened to Nick on Patrick Bet David and on Dave Smith, and then I said my piece. And remember, the whole reason I started my former podcast searching for political identity and am doing this podcast now and have any sort of minute relevance on Twitter is because I studied critical race theory in law school, and that gave me a foundation to really question my political identity. And over the course of the years, I started interviewing conservatives and libertarians and really started to connecting with their arguments. Um, and started to feel less connected to the progressive roots that I was raised with, and ultimately, followed Kennedy to Trump, blah, blah, blah. And after a lifetime of voting for Democrats, I am now a Trump supporter. That's my whole thing, right? So, as wildly ignorant as I am on most issues, I actually have a pretty good foundation on the culture war stuff. And that is one of the most relevant issues in our society today. And so that's why I'm comfortable, doing some commentary on the Groyper stuff. And so I guess unscripted, here's what I have to say. Um, so I did that episode on Nick, and I guess my point in bringing that up is I think I was really fair, and I don't try to demonize anybody, but I found myself for the first time that I can think of really going at it with Groypers online. If anyone who doesn't know, the Groypers are the Christian nationalists, the white nationalists. Um, Maybe it's unfair to call them all white supremacists, but the Nazis, the genuine anti-Semites, the hateful racists, the people who say awful things online. Um, these are the Groypers, and maybe they're not all that way, but some of them are. And my whole thing was when I decided to vote for Trump, I go, this isn't MAGA. There's a difference between MAGA and then you have the Groypers, which is the fringe element. And look, and guess what? They've all turned on Trump. Remember Nick and Richard Spencer? They were all voting for Kamala Harris. They think Trump abandoned them. And in the reality, they were never really fully aligned. They only thought they were MAGA. That was kind of the point of my Nick Fuentes episode. And I was thinking, I go, because the last 72 hours, I have been dealing with torrents of hate, torrents of anti-Semitism. Um, and still, I recognize this is only a tiny fringe, guys. I mean, just because 50,000 people are calling me an ugly kike and telling me to get the fuck out of the country and this and that, um, it doesn't mean that this is MAGA. Okay, let's keep that in mind. But so I go, wait a minute, what did I even do to trigger this? Why am I coming off of my wedding and in this heated battle? And I realized it was because of the Erica Kirk thing. Um, I think, if I recall correctly, I just had enough of people accusing Erica Kirk of being an actress. The whole thing is so gross. It's so fucking gross. I think I just because I just got married, right? Connecting the dots here, I go, no, 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 no. I cannot tolerate people saying this kind of shit about a widow, a grieving widow. Oh, the JD Vance hug thing. That's what it was. I said some strong things about it, like this is wrong. What the fuck is that kind of thing. Excuse me. And I started really inviting the hate. And next thing you know, I'm going back and forth with all these Groypers, and I am just working myself up. Some people would say I crashed out. I would say I'm just warming up for this big fight where I just said, look, guys, you guys are fucking filth, okay? You guys are fucking shit. Look what you're doing to this poor woman. Look at your worldview that makes it so that this is the path your brain goes through, and that's the conclusion you reach. Really? I'm sorry. I believe in fucking aliens. I believe in conspiracy theories, but I'm not willing. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm the fucking idiot. Time will tell. But I am not willing, based on the evidence in front of me, to say that Israel had anything to do with Charlie Kirk's murder and that Erica Kirk is involved. It is so damn gross. So I've been pretty strong about condemning that kind of stuff, and it really provoked a reaction. And now I'm in this days long Groyper war. Okay. And I have the likes of Lily Gaddis. Um, I assume you don't know who she is. The only reason I know who she is because she was the young woman. I think she's a single mother. I've heard rumors that her mom is uh, is in an interracial relationship or was or something, and that didn't sit well with Lily. But you may remember Lily is she got fired from her job, I think, for saying some racist, anti-Semitic shit. She's just one of these real pieces of shit. I mean, I really don't have any problem saying that. People who wants to get famous online for saying Jew, kike, the N-word, whatever it is, they think it's just funny. They think it's appropriate, and I don't. And I I was very gracious in my coverage of Nick Fuentes, I would say. Not so gracious in my coverage of Lily Gaddis, because the only thing I've seen from her is trash. And well, she's one of the very few people that I would openly talk shit about because I think she's gross. That's just what it is. So she's coming at me, and many, many more like her. So interesting experience. But I think one of my points here, what is one of my points here? Let me see if I can find one in my brain here. Is that in going back and forth a little bit with some of these people and seeing the worst of the worst in the underbelly, some have said to me, "Hey Brian, you're getting a lot of hate right now, but you're actually." So in response to some of these horrible things, I would kind of do my thing and say the Groypers want a whites only society, and critical race theory is wrong. I talked shit about that for 2 years. I fought against it. It's what drove me into Trump's arms. I'm fully with the right on that, but don't mirror image it and go for the whites only thing. That's equally wrong, right? I mean, we're supposed to be doing a racially neutral, common sense, constitution based policies. That's MAGA to me, right? And people say, actually, Brian, well, some people would say, listen, Jew, you're incapable of being honest about what the Groypers actually want. The Groypers do not call for a whites only society. And so, okay, let me learn something here. And I guess it's the case that not all Groypers want a whites only society. And so maybe I am being a little bit, um, I won't say deceptive, but maybe I'm wrong to say that. Maybe the nuanced argument is, and this is what I'm hearing, is it's not that the Groypers want a white only society. It's that they want a majority white society. They want the white culture in their view to be maintained. And so that is an interesting difference. And it makes me think back to studying critical race theory in law school. I've said this before, but I know 99.9% of you are not regular listeners of mine. So I think I have the freedom here to repeat myself, which is when I learned it, CRT, in law school in 2022, we didn't just study CRT in a vacuum. It was this is the framework of understanding race relations in this country. It's a very controversial class. That's why I ended up becoming a Republican essentially. Sip of water, and the professor I had who was amazing and really knowledgeable on all this material, obviously, but he was an older black gentleman, and so I was really getting it from the source. He said, "Look, here's the framework for race relations. You have traditionalism, which is like your Ted Cruz, which is what I think MAGA is. The just the Republican view, which is look, the Civil Rights Act was great. We needed it, but it's done. We did it. We now have that neutral society. Roll with it. Be colorblind, embrace it, love it. That's where I am, and that's what traditionalism is. Reformism is look, we want to get to that point. We're not too far from that point, but there's still work to do around the edges of society. So let's make these tweaks with certain policies, and let's help black people out, minorities out, in such a way that we can really just finish opening up the doors of society to them into where we can all fold into that traditionalist view. Okay, traditionalism, reformism. Then you have critical race theory, which says society is radically unfair for anyone who is not a straight white man or woman, and that therefore we have to radically transform society, the pillars of society, into something that is more racially equitable, that is more equitable for minorities and so forth. That is controversial. And I could say much more about the definition of CRT, but at its core, it's about radically transforming society because, and here's the assertion of the CRT proponents, they say society, even though it's colorblind on paper since the Civil Rights Act of 64, in the streets, in effect, it's still a white man, a straight white man's world. And there's a lot to do before that changes. That's CRT. And it gets lumped in with Marxism very appropriately because, you know, what do you think they're talking about when they say we want to make things more fair, more equitable, racially, economically? We want to tear down the system of capitalism that only serves the interests of white people and so forth. It's a whole ball of yarn there. So you have those three: traditionalism, reformism, CRT, and then you have limited separation. Professor taught us that Derek Bell, the Harvard professor who created critical race theory in the late 80s, I think it was, or early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Derek Bell apparently lamented on his deathbed CRT did not work because the mainstream culture, white culture, and keep in mind that is the assertion of critical race theory that there is a white culture, there is a black culture, there's an Indian culture, there's an Asian culture, and that in this country the white culture predominates, and that has to change in order to have spiritual, economic, racial equity among all different groups. You got to break that down. And I go, wow, that's the melting pot you're talking about here. And so the melting pot is good. We don't want to just have this amorphous bunch of different things floating around. We want to have a melting pot with things in it. My goodness. So really didn't like CRT. Whereas limited separation, Derek Bell said, no, it just didn't take CRT. The white culture, the white people, the mainstream rejected it. And so now we have to go to plan B, which is limited separation, which sounds like a return to segregation. Goodness me. Sorry about all the water drinking. But it's not a return to segregation because anyone can join. So limited separation says, okay, here's what we're going to do. As for example, black people could be applied to any group. We're going to have our own fire stations, police stations, hospitals, government buildings, all of the schools, all of that. Think HBCUs, but expanded. Neighborhoods, rec centers, all of that. We're going to have our own slice of society. And it's not that white people or Indian people or Jewish people or Asian people can't come in. They can. But each institution must retain at least a 51% majority black composition so that the institution stays black. The values are black, so that black needs are served. And it really makes sense on a level, right? But I was in this class and I go, geez, I don't like that either, man. I can't, I mean, I was like, okay, like I'm Jewish. I'm not a particularly religious Jew, but I'm leaning more into it as I get older for sure. But even as a non-religious Jew, I understand how strong the Jewish community is. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing wrong with a strong community. I mean, do that. That's great. And the idea behind limited separation is the best way to help the black community is to allow them to help themselves. And so that resonates definitely more so than maybe critical race theory, but still, it's like, no, what? No, let's just have a country where we all respect each other, abide by the Constitution, and have racially neutral policies. And again, to me, that's MAGA, and that's why I ended up embracing it. So, and then in the last day or two, I'm being told by the Groypers, look, man, we don't want a whites only society. We just want a society that is at least 51% white. I go, oh, wow. So it's really the inverse of not critical race theory, but limited separation. I go, oh, that's interesting. So I guess what I have to say about that is how to say this. I'm not struggling with what to say, but I want to be careful about it. I guess my thoughts are you can't deny that American culture, traditional American culture, which I love and respect and admire, and don't think was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but if you consider yourself a patriot, if you consider yourself someone who loves America, you have to see through the warts. And when I say warts, I mean the horrors and terrors of slavery and colonialism. You have to see through all that and see something better and see a good purpose. I don't want to go as far as to say a divine purpose, even though I could go there. But you have to think that this country that we have, the society that we have, despite all the trauma that was inflicted on people in its creation, is good, is fundamentally good. Okay. And that we're striving for that more perfect union every day, and that we shouldn't feel bad about ourselves. That's the core thing. And I do feel that way. And so I do acknowledge that traditional American culture came from white people. It's perhaps fair to say American culture is traditionally molded off of white culture. Okay, fine. But this is not a whites only country. And this is a country where everyone who assimilates and believes in American values should be welcome if they come legally. That is just a simple fact for me. And so it makes me think, we don't have to retain a white population or a white culture, but you do have to retain American culture. And you can't deny that American culture is largely influenced, not solely influenced, but largely influenced by white culture of the 19th century, 18th century. So, freedom, liberty, equality, these are things that we should be proud of that were embedded into the Constitution originally. They weren't executed faithfully initially. And we shouldn't get rid of all the exhibits in museums that show that, but we should understand and look at things holistically. So I look at this whole conversation and I say, I understand where the Groypers are coming from in the sense that look what they've been reacting to the last couple decades. Critical race theory and limited separation. Oh, forget limited separation for a second. The critical race theory saying this is a poisonous culture. We have to undo it. You're all bad. Fuck. I can understand why the Groypers are feeling pissed off and angry and resentful and mean and like they got to fight to the death almost literally now at this point, to save their country and their culture. I understand that. It's completely understandable. I don't agree with them going all the way, whether it's their version of critical race theory, as some would want to do, as some definitely want to do, which would equal the whites only thing, right? Or it's their version of limited separation, where they say, no, we got to just retain the majority here. We got to limit immigration to this level, and we got to make sure that we can all play baseball and get ice cream and do all the things that white people love doing in the 80s. I do get that, but my answer is this: assimilation is key. We all need to. You need to have a basic respect for traditional American culture if you're going to come to this country. I think that's the key. You don't got to be white. You don't got to have a shrine to white people in your closet or to Thomas Jefferson in your closet. But I do think that if you are completely resentful of the founding of this country and are unable to see any of the good in it, pardon me, I'm not sure that it makes sense to have you in this country, no matter what color your skin is. That's where I come from. So, yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say. We have a culture war still playing out. And it's amazing how these people have abandoned Trump in so many in such a large order because Trump stood by Israel after October 7th, 2023. Now they think Trump is Israel's puppet. It's really amazing. So these are the times we live in. I will continue doing this podcast until I feel like I've completely run out of things to say. But every time I think, oh man, what else could I possibly have to contribute to the national conversation? Something happens either nationally or in my life where I go, geez, not yet, I guess. I guess we'll do one more episode. So I'm so grateful to have you guys as listeners. I am interviewing a young Democrat tomorrow. I'm going to ask him about a what I consider to be vile comment he made about the Erica Kirk JD Vance hug. And we'll talk about why he's a Democrat and how he's so smart, and if there's things I can learn from him, which I'm sure there are, and maybe there's something he can learn from me. But we're gonna have that. I have several conversations on the schedule for the next month, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to doing this show more regularly now that I am married and should be able to get a normal schedule back. Hoping to do this more regularly. I enjoy doing it. Um, so thank you all very much, and I hope to see you soon. All right, take care.